Welcome back to Grounded in Simplicity, where we are helping moms get back to basics and learn to find joy in being less busy. I'm Danielle from The Rustic Elk, joined by my good friend Bonnie of The Not So Modern Housewife. And today we are going to talk about preparing for peak season on the homestead without getting overwhelmed.
So I think maybe we'll start off by talking about kind of just having a roadmap for the season ahead, depending on what you have coming along, whether it is planning out your garden, planning out, your chickens or anything like that. Kind of knowing like what your, benchmarks are going to be. Because I don't like saying, okay, I'm going to do this on this day and, like planning out everything, because that never works. And in my opinion, really just leads to the overwhelm. But I think if you have kind of like a note written in your calendar saying, okay, this week, the focus may be this, or this week, the focus may be that. So for instance, with the garden, timing is everything, at least, especially for Florida gardening. And so we'll have different seeds that need to be started every month of the year. And we need to have kind of a plan ahead of time of what seeds are going to need to be started. So we have the seeds on hand. But then also like knowing kind of where they're going to go in the garden bed so that we make the space ahead of time, or, add garden beds or harvest something else that we need to plan when things are going to be harvested. And so even though I may not be able to say, this is the day I'm going to do it, because obviously I don't know what the weather's going to be. I don't know everything that's going to be going on, but I can at least kind of have a roadmap of the things I'm going to try to work on or focus on every week. And then even if I do get a little bit behind, it's a lot easier to work that into the schedule than if I've planned everything out and then I have no wiggle room.
Right. I know up here for me, I will pick what I want to plant and kind of try to decide how many I think I want to try to grow and all of those things. And then I will, of course, buy seeds, make sure that I have everything. I usually buy seeds in December for the following year, whatever I don't have in my mess of seeds. And then I'll count back from our last frost date for each week. So, like our last frost date is May 10th. I usually go all the way out to May 20th and consider that our last frost date, because the last few years it's been later and it hasn't really started to warm up until then.
I think the guideline is to actually plan like a 14-day window to make sure you're out of that danger zone.
Right. So I usually plan like May 20th, May in the middle part of May, maybe even a little bit later, depending on what it is. But I'll count back and I'll make a list of, like this is 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, et cetera, until I get all the way back into February where we start onions at, 12 weeks or whatever. And I'll keep that list in my garden binder and I'll write down what I need to start each week. So It doesn't have to be exact, but since we have to start a lot of seeds indoors here, we don't have nice Florida weather. I'll make a note, like, okay, I need to put onions in, or, lavender or yarrow, or I need to start my peppers or my tomatoes or anything like that, and try to keep an eye on that list as we start getting into gardening season. And also I'll write down, well, it should be safe to start peas outside because they can handle a little bit of frost and the ground should be thawed enough that I can work the soil. And I don't want to put my tomatoes out until at least May 20th. Because I don't want them to freeze, and trying to cover them is a hassle. And the last time I tried to do it, they died. So
right.
I make a running list, and then I'll just, every week, once we start into, like the middle part of February, I'll start going through that list and making sure that I'm getting my seeds started on time.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing with having a list like
hardening and all that stuff.
Yeah. The nice thing with having a list like that is it's pretty consistent from year to year. So once it's done, it's done. And yeah, you just keep it in your gardening binder, right, and you have it as a reference, for every year. And you can even make notes, alongside of that, like, okay, this took longer to mature, so maybe I need to start it further ahead of time. Or maybe, we got a late frost and make notes like that. But yeah, I think that's important to have some kind of a reference guide there that is, doesn't change too much from year to year, because then it's less work you have to do every year.
Right. Yeah, I think
Now,
having a planner or journal or something and taking notes, and you can even keep track of the pests that you really struggled with, and when you really struggled with them, and what you tried and what worked and what didn't work, and what your yields were, and all of
mhm,
those different things, so that it makes it easier as you do it more. So every year
right.
it gets a little bit easier, because you can just look back on those notes and be like, okay, well, I grew this variety and it was crap in my area. So, but I grew this one and it did really well. And I started it then. So let's do that.
Yeah, that's something I was going to mention, like with your list, is if you have another column that kind of has, the best variety you found, and do it in pencil. So if you need to erase it and, replace it with something else, that you can. But I'd say have you had any struggles? I know you were pretty good on seeds for this year, but have you had any struggles finding like the specific varieties that you were looking for with all of the seed shortages last couple of years?
I didn't this year, because I got ahead of the ball and made sure that I had kept track of what I had, and I bought onions. Last year I could not find onion seeds to save my life.
Yeah,
And then
they were hard to
I
find.
finally found some, and I didn't pay attention to the seed count, and I got them in the mail and there were like 20,
Oh,
which is
not
right.
very many onions in the
And
grand scheme
I
of
will
things.
not mention the seed company, because they're a seed company that I like, but I was shocked. I went to start sprinkling them out into my hand so I could put them in my trays, and I'm like, that's it. And I'm like, going, they
Well, and
forget.
I really wonder if it was because it was so hard to find onion seeds. They probably wanted to make sure that every customer got some. But yeah, it's because
Right, but that's not
there's
any.
I know, I know. I mean, like there's one. I really like tasty green cucumbers. They do really well down here. Like I found them to be the most pest and disease resistant for Florida. But there's like 5 seeds in a packet, and those 5 seeds are twice as much as the regular cucumbers with 10 seeds in them. Like, so you're paying like 4 times as much per seed. And I mean, and then I went and got, because I'm a seed nerd. I went and got the Crimson Giant tomato seeds from MI Gardener, which at this point, I think I'm actually going to save all of the seeds that I got until fall, because I'm afraid that I'm going to start them now and then I'm going to lose them to summer, because it's just, I don't know. Anyway, that's another story for another day. But
Does it just get
uh,
too hot? You can't grow tomatoes there?
it gets too hot and we have too many fungal issues. I mean, most of what I lose is to fusarium wilt. And I mean, the stink bugs get really bad too. And when you're talking about a large heirloom tomato variety, it takes them so much longer to ripen that it leaves too much time for the bugs to find them and get them. So
Right.
spring is usually a better time for Roma tomatoes, some of the smaller slicing tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, and some of the hybrids that grow faster, or determinate varieties. But the large heirloom tomatoes are better for our fall season. And then we just have to keep them from
Makes
freezing.
sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Florida's weird. None of our gardening does not make sense. Like logically. So I've been listening to Down to Earth by Monty Don, and it's a fascinating book. Like I love listening to him because it's like listening to a hobbit talk about gardening. But he's talking about English gardening. And so much of the stuff that he talks about with gardening in England does not apply to Florida because our climate is so different. Now, I think my goal is going to be to kind of take his like philosophies that he talks about, and because I like a lot of what he says, because he talks about finding balance in the garden, and really like creating environments in the garden that are really beneficial to your beneficial insects. Um, he doesn't spray anything, even for the bad pests. He really like he provides enough environmental areas for the beneficial insects to live, but then also he plants stuff that is more appealing to the pests so that they leave the vegetables alone. I still think that it takes time to find that balance. And until you can, build up the ecosystem for the beneficial insects and draw them in, I think you're going to have to do some, damage control with the pests. Because I know for me, our bugs don't die. And so if I just left it to nature, I wouldn't have a garden. I've had cucumber beetles come through and literally wipe out everything in like a week. So I'm not willing to leave that to chance. But I would love to take his cottage garden concepts and just make them more Florida friendly. So getting back to planning, I do think that staying ahead of the curve is a huge part of not getting overwhelmed, because the more stuff that accumulates, the more it just like, it's still in our subconscious mind that all of this stuff needs to get done. It's like our brain keeps a running tally. And the more stuff that goes undone and the more stuff that starts to accumulate, then the more our anxiety builds. And then that leads to the overwhelm. I think if we have it scheduled out, it kind of helps our brain to go, okay, I don't need to worry about that yet, because I'll worry about that next week because it's on the schedule for next week. This week, I can just focus on this.
Right.
But if it was on the schedule for last week and it's still not done, and now we also have this week's stuff to do, which again is why I don't like scheduling stuff out. I like having like benchmarks, like I said, and don't put too much stuff as your focus for every week.
Right. But at the same time, I think, I know we've talked about establishing rhythms and routines before, and I think that is very, very important when you get into, I don't know, I guess I call it the busy season. You call it the busy season, but we didn't refer to it as that. So, but when you get into the busy season, they're very, very important.
Right. There's good busy, there's bad busy. There's busy for the sake of busy, which is what we're trying to avoid. And then there is actively working to accomplish our goals and our priorities that sometimes makes us busy.
You're right. Well, when you're working on being a producer instead of a consumer, it kind of, you're going to be busy, for lack of a better word, but it's a different kind of busy than just, like you said, being busy for the sake of being busy. But I think as far as the busy season of gardening and chick raising and all that stuff, set yourself some rhythms. Doesn't have to be like a scheduled thing, but like every morning go out in your garden before it gets too hot and pull some weeds, do like a whole row or whatever it is. And, set the rhythm of, okay, I need to feed the chicks and I need to check on everybody and make sure nobody has pasty. But if you're, brooding your own chicks and all of that stuff, set the rhythm of what time works for you to do that once or twice a day, or, however big their feeder is or whatever. And set the, like a weekly rhythm of cleaning out their brooder until they get a little bit bigger. And then you have to do it more often. And if you have ducks, then you're going to do it every 2 hours.
How many ducks did you buy last week?
We have 11. Well, some of them will be meat. So because they're straight runs. So all the males
I know,
will be meat. But
it's still, it's going to be cold there for a while and they're not going to be able to go outside. I guess you do have a garage. So worst case, they can go in the garage.
That's where they're at.
My two options are outside or the bathtub. And so, but yeah, I need to hatch some ducklings. Tanks. Right. Yeah.
So it's not so bad.
We use Rubbermaid containers, but I have 4 chicks in the bathtub right now they're in a Rubbermaid container in the bathtub, but they need to go outside. They're almost fully feathered. No, but yeah. And also, like, speaking of the rhythms, is not trying to add too much or do too much at one time. Like, I've run into this problem with seed starting is I will try to start all the things all at once. And eventually those things are all going to need to be transplanted. And they're all ready to be transplanted all at the same time. And then
Mhm.
the first few trays go really well, and I get those in the ground and they flourish. And then by the time I get to the last tray, the stuff is either dying or stunted because it stayed root bound too long. So I really I limit myself to how many trays I will start each week, unless it's stuff like if I did start a lot of trays because I was doing like about half of it was peppers, and peppers take a lot longer to grow anyway. So I wasn't as
Right.
worried about needing to transplant them right away. In fact, I mean, that was like a month ago when I started those, and they are just starting to come up. But um, yeah, just
Mine
but
got ruined, so
I did you restart them now?
yeah, none of them have
That's
sprouted
good.
yet, but I started them when I started the onions
Mm-hmm.
since they take so long because it seems like every
Right.
year I start them when the seed packet tells me to, which I think it says like 6 to 8 weeks is all. It's not near long enough. Like
No,
they're
it's
finally starting to have peppers when I'm, starting to pull a garden up. So
right. And it's um and my gardener made, or what is his name is Luke, I think. He made an interesting comment on his Facebook page, which of course got like mixed results because some people were like, "Oh yeah, I totally agree with you," and then there was, the haters on Facebook that you can't say anything right. And he
right.
he made the comment that like all this stuff that's on the back of the seed packet and planting for your zone um is really a bunch of rubbish. It's like your zone is not as important as your frost dates, is the point he was making.
Right.
But also knowing and I mean, this is going to be based off your frost dates, but the most important number to really pay attention to is the length of your season. Because
Right.
yeah, if your season is only 120 days long and you're planting something that takes 120 days to go to maturity, then you either are not going to get the results that you want, or you need to start it, far enough in advance that you're still going to get fruit that season.
Right. I think that there's helpful information on the back of a seed packet, and you can definitely use all of it as a guideline. And, if the seed packet, if you've never gardened before and the seed packet says to start indoors 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date, then do that. And then next
Mm-hmm.
year, if you realize it's peppers and you weren't pulling peppers off until late August or late September even, and it's going to frost the 1st of October, the next year you just start them a little bit earlier and you start to
Right.
learn and you put notes in that garden journal so that you
Right.
can each year you'll learn a little bit more. It'll be a little bit easier, but I definitely think there's useful information on the back of the seed packet.
Yeah, I think it was more like I've noticed at least the high-end seed companies are getting away from having the USDA map on the back of the seed packets. I really only see that in like the seed packets you see at the big box stores. But I see it all the time in my Florida gardening groups is, people are starting stuff based off the back of the seed packet, and the seed packet said start this in May for Florida. And it's like, yeah, no, don't like do the opposite of what the seed packets say if you're gardening for Florida.
Right.
So, they try to do it as a blanket statement. And it's the same thing. Like if we're talking about zone 9 gardening in Florida versus zone 9 gardening in Texas, it's not going to be the same. We've got totally different environments.
Don't garden based off your zone if you've got nothing out of this. Garden based off your last frost date. And there are places we can link in the show notes where you can type in your zip code and it will be far more accurate than just your zone. And another thing you can do is check your local nursery. Usually they have pretty good information, and most of them are pretty helpful on helping you if you've
And
never,
if you're gardening in Florida, message me over at kitchenbotanicals.com. But I will say gardening by frost dates doesn't even make a difference in Florida. We garden based off of when it stops being 90 degrees and when it starts being 90 degrees.
Well, yeah, but that's kind
dates.
of right. So your hot dates instead of your frost dates.
My hot dates.
You're hot.
When
Nate.
does it when does it stop feeling like we live in the rainforest, and when does it start feeling like we live in the rainforest? That's what we go based on. This episode was brought to you by Kitchen Botanicals, your sustainable gardening headquarters. Stop by kitchenbotanicals.com and get a look at our 2022 seed varieties, as well as supplies and pest control products to help you with your organic garden. 2022 is a great time to take care of yourself with our Pampered Gardener subscription box. Every month, you'll receive all natural self-care products, untreated heirloom seeds, high-quality garden tools, organic garden amendments, cute and practical supplies, and fun products that we know you'll love. This is your opportunity to take care of yourself in the garden. I started the Pampered Gardener subscription box because I had gone through a time of not taking care of myself and dealing with the stress that it put onto my body. I was ill, I was tapped out, and I felt like I couldn't possibly pour any more out of my empty cup. So I created the Pampered Gardener subscription box for women like me who wanted to get back to what they enjoy, but also wanted to love themselves. So we've put together this collection of gardening and self-care products that are geared towards women who love to garden. You'll get things such as gloves, lotion, bags, hats, sunscreen, mosquito repellent, things that you can actually use, but also things that you'll enjoy. And don't worry, there will still be plenty of gardening tools, seeds. We've created a subscription box like no other by gardeners for gardeners. Order your own box today. And I guess going back to so we were talking about having rhythms, and yes, a lot of your rhythm is going to be like developing habits for each day and having a routine that you go through each day. But also, like I've talked about before, we have certain times of the month when we have more energy and less energy. Guys, if you're listening, cover your ears because you're going to be weirded out about this. But when you're planning out your month, you have the follicular phase, which is really like right after the bleeding stops. And then you have the ovulation phase. And those are the times, like the 2 weeks that you're going to have the most energy. And then luteal phase is your PMS week. And then you also have your menstruation week. And so those are going to be the 2 weeks when you have the least amount of energy. Also, you're kind of the moodiest and everyone pisses you off, at least if you're me. So those are the weeks that it's better to stay in and do your planning and things like that. But if you have big projects starting all of your seeds, transplanting stuff outside, so if you need to weed the entire garden, save it for those 2 weeks when you have the most energy, and then do your planning the other 2 weeks when you're more introspective.
And incorporate help, like your husband,
and ask for help. Yeah,
your children.
Henry was actually, my 11-year-old was doing a really good job of helping me. Granted, I was paying him, but he was helping me with the garden and with the business and filling orders and all of that. And then he saved up enough money for whatever game he wanted to buy, and then all of a sudden he wasn't helpful anymore. So he's going to be helping me again, even if I have to pay him, and he's going to get over it because I need the help. And unfortunately, the younger two try to help, but I spend so much time supervising them that it's really not help because it's, it becomes more work, which isn't bad. I mean, there's a time and place for that, so I can train them so that eventually they will be more helpful. But the 11-year-old is at that point where I can just be like, okay, this is what I need to be done. This is how you do it. Now go do it.
Right.
And then I don't have to hold his hand the whole time.
And I think that, establishing those rhythms with your kids is also incredibly helpful. Like my kids know they have to get up. They're going to help feed the animals. Then they're going to sit down and we're going to eat breakfast. And then we start school and, you start to establish those rhythms. They know that after school, they have certain chores. They have a list for each day, the few chores that they need to do. And then they have free time. And so I know that during the gardening season, they will definitely be going out and helping me keep the garden weeded because it's so large. And
right.
They will not be getting paid. If they want to eat, then they're going to help weed the garden.
My son is extremely money motivated. And so I've found that that's just the easiest way to get him to actually do things.
Right. That makes sense.
But he has started investing in the stock market.
Well, whatever works.
So, whatever. I'll take it. I mean, I will say he's being really good about setting money goals. And if he knows there's something he wants to save up for, then he's setting his money aside and saving up for that. And then he knows that he's buying that himself. But, and I'm trying to, they actually have their own accounts with debit cards now. So like if they want to buy little snacks or whatever when we're out at the store, they're going to use their card to buy it. So, and it takes the pressure off of me because I'm tired of constantly having to tell them, no, I'm not buying that for you.
Right.
Now it's, if you want that badly, then you can use your money to buy it.
Right.
So,
and it teaches them money
sometimes
responsibility.
It works. Right.
Meal planning and, like utilizing a crock pot, eating like fresh foods from your garden, salads and stuff where you don't have like a lot of extra prep work and stuff. I definitely think that helps during the busy season more so than it does,
well, and I do a lot of like cook once, eat for a few days.
Right.
So we did it kind of accidentally this week. Is I was cooking something for a class I teach in my homeschool co-op, and the kids ate all the rice and only ate like half the vegetables. So we have a ton of steamed vegetables now to eat. But I mean they're good, so I can't complain too much. I mean it's like bok choy and green beans and bean sprouts, and I'll probably make some more fried rice, and then I can have, and I need to actually thaw out a chicken, and then that can be a meal. But
you can make
but yeah, it
what do they
saves
call it? A rubber chicken, where you take a whole chicken and you make it into like 4 meals.
Oh yeah, I've done that.
We eat too much.
I've done that with a lot of roasts. Yeah, I mean you can do that with just about any roast though, because you can roast it and you have whatever meat you eat that first day, or do it in the crock pot or whatever. The second day you can turn around and put that meat into a casserole or into tacos or something like that. And then the third day, especially if it has a bone in the roast, you take whatever meat scraps were left over and the bone and you turn that into soup.
Right.
Add some vegetables and some beans in there. Yeah, it's really, really good. But yeah, you can do the same thing with chicken. I mean, really just, and it's better to do that just from a zero waste perspective. But
right.
I like not like only having to reheat food and not having to completely cook a meal saves so much time. Well, I mean, because you're not only not doing all the cooking, but you have half as many dishes and all of that. So,
right. That's why I like the crock pot, because especially like the dump meals where you just put a bunch of stuff in the crock pot and turn it on and then you just eat dinner later.
Right.
You don't have to make sides or anything because everything's just in the crock pot and it cooked all day. And
right.
So you don't have as
my
many
trouble
dishes.
is I will forget to I will forget to start it early enough, because I'll get up and I'll get started with all the other things that I seem to need to do every morning. And then before I know it, it's like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, it's not going to have enough time to cook. So if I have the fridge space, which can get tricky because my fridge is tiny, but I will preload everything into the crock pot the night before and put it in the fridge. And then all I have to do is put it in the warmer.
Yeah. Another option is when you're establishing those rhythms that we're talking about, to do your meal prep, like write down, if you menu plan, even if you don't know exactly what you're going to cook, say, I'm going to make something with red meat and potatoes tomorrow. And so you make sure that you have your meat out and it's thawed at the beginning of the week. And then you write down, tonight I want to have that red meat tomorrow. So tonight I need to make sure that I do any of the prep work. Like if I have vegetables that I need to chop up or anything like that, then you don't have all that extra stuff to do. And you're not trying to do it during, like witching hour at my house is when I'm cooking dinner.
Of course.
So I try to, it doesn't always happen, but I try to establish a rhythm so that if I have vegetables that need chopped up, that got done the night before when my husband was here, before we went to bed, and then everything got thrown in the fridge. And then all I have to do is pull it out when it's time to make dinner. If it's a marinade, then I already have it marinated. I don't have to worry about, doing it at the last minute or doing it first thing in the morning because I did it all the night before. That's just, part of that whole getting ready for the next day type of thing.
Well, and the way I'll try to do it is I will plan my grocery shopping for like Saturday. And then I'll do my meal prep stuff on Sunday. I cannot do my grocery shopping and my meal prep on the same day. I'm so exhausted by the time I'm done with the grocery shopping. If I have to go to the store, if I'm doing grocery delivery, it's a little bit different, but still, I'll plan it for a weekend because then my husband is home to wrangle the children. And then I can just focus on that without having to worry about them, being underfoot or anything like that.
Right.
And then everything is done ahead of time.
That's another time saver though, is when you do get groceries, which we only do like once, maybe twice a month. And in the summer, I don't even think we go that often, but you can get pickup or delivery, which saves so much time. And, just make sure you plan out, if you're using fresh produce, then plan out your meals so that, you're using that fresh produce the first part of the week instead of, a week and a half from now when
right,
it's not any good and you get in your crisper drawer and you have a bunch of, really gross.
Yeah. I don't know how many times over I'm going to buy parsley and cilantro and then throw it away a week later.
I did that with
You'd
dill.
think I would learn by now. I don't even try to buy dill.
You would think that I would remember. You would think that I would remember that I bought it since you can smell it.
I don't
but I'll
smell
forget
it.
Oh,
but see, like you
don't smell dill. It smells like
pickles.
but
I don't buy fresh dill.
Yeah.
I use dried. I don't smell the parsley and cilantro dying.
Well, no, it doesn't.
The crisper drawers. And that's why I really can't use my crisper drawers for vegetables because out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
Like it's just, if they are in that drawer, they don't exist. I usually use those drawers for, like shredded cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think what else I do have some vegetables in those drawers right now. I have carrots and celery in there, but yeah. And so I have been doing a lot of grocery delivery. One, because it saves me at least 4 hours a week between like having to plan everything out, going to the store, actually doing the grocery shopping, driving back home, unloading everything. It's just, yeah. And especially if I have to add kids into that mix, forget it. But, I, for the most part, it's actually cheaper for me. And maybe this is because Publix is so ridiculously expensive. I love Publix to death, but they are overpriced. And so Kroger delivered is cheaper than Publix in store, except for like, I don't like doing the delivered produce because a lot of times they're charging you per item, which is a horrible way to buy produce.
Oh, they don't do that here.
Oh yeah, they do. Like pretty much all of the vegetables I've seen have been per item rather than per pound. So, and we have a really, oh yeah, no. Now they do the meat by pound, but not the vegetables. And we do have a farmer's market nearby that I like to go and get produce from. The only thing is it doesn't last as long. So, and they're only open like half the week now. So if I don't they're only open Sunday through Wednesday. And so if I'm out of something on Thursday, then I'm out of luck, I guess, or I have to go somewhere else. But
one day here, Saturday. That's it.
Oh yeah. Well, this is on farm.
Right. We have a couple of places that do that, but their hours are like really wacky.
Oh yeah.
Really wacky.
We had a really good one in Ohio. They had really good U-pick. They had, pretty convenient hours. I don't even know if they're still in business, but.
Well, so many farms have gotten away from the U-pick thing because of rising insurance costs and.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, but.
Right.
That's.
Right. We have a few that still do that stuff too. And then we have, I think
the U-pick is really big down here.
I think the best way to do it up here where I am is, we have farmers markets, but almost all of them are one day and they're only on Saturday and they're only for a few hours. Go to a couple of those so you can find the farms so that you can talk to the farmer and maybe get stuff on a different day locally or see if they have some kind of CSA or other kind of share available. And that is definitely the best way to get food around here. We have a lot of CSAs that do delivery.
Oh, nice.
So you don't even have to go anywhere. Like our raw milk delivery all the way up from Decatur delivers all the way down here every 2 weeks. So You don't have to drive and get it. You can go to the farm and check it out, of course, but you don't have to go get milk every week. They'll just bring it to you.
Yeah. There's a girl here who, she started a business because of the pandemic of just going around to the different farms and then delivering the stuff to customers. So she would go and pick up the milk and the produce boxes. And like, we've got one farm that pretty much all they sell is sweet corn. I mean, they have a produce barn, but their bread and butter is sweet corn. So she goes to all the farms and picks it up, and then she goes and delivers it to different people. So it's definitely, that's convenient. I mean, it's, for me, I don't mind going to the farms because it's an excuse to get out of the house. And I usually go and like talk to the farmer and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's a different vibe than going to the grocery store.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Grocery store, I'm just trying to keep my head down and hope no one notices me or recognizes me.
I just want to get done with it. So I was really, really hesitant to do the whole pickup delivery thing for groceries because I don't want people to pick my produce because some people just don't know how to pick produce. But knock on wood, the gals that usually, because it seems like it's always the same people that are picking my groceries because I go at the same time, and they're super nice and they actually know how to grocery shop. So I don't usually have that problem.
Nice.
But I definitely say try it if you are hesitant to do it, just because, I like the whole old fashioned thing, but we still go to the grocery. I don't know anybody that doesn't use the grocery for at least some things. And I mean, nobody's making toilet paper. Sorry, folks. This is not happening. And I'm not doing that family cloth thing.
I was going to say there's family cloth.
Not happening. I draw the line.
I was actually having the whole conversation about cloth diapers with somebody at our homeschool co-op, and she was debating on sticking with the cloth diapers with her youngest because it's just, she's feeling overwhelmed, and she's like the disposables are just so cheap, and I mean, he was in that newborn stage, so the diapers that she had weren't fitting real well, and I don't know, she's just it's just, I think it's been a kind of a frustrating learning curve for her. But I was like, I really couldn't, I had to get away with it with my youngest because I had really so many health problems after he was born, and I fell behind on laundry, and I needed to get some stuff off my plate. There was too much, and I had to accept that I couldn't do it all. And so, and it was also, most of our cloth diapers I had bought with my oldest. And then I was able to reuse most of them with my daughter. But by the time I got to my youngest, most of them needed the elastic replaced in the leg bands. And like, I had zero time or energy to sit there and replace the elastic and the leg bands. Like, I had these moms telling me, just do it while you're watching TV. I'm like, when do I sit down and watch TV? Like, so I was like, I have to let this go.
And that's another tip though, that we could.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You have to let some stuff go.
Right. And I mean, and that's why I don't stress about the grocery delivery, because I've got too much on my plate. I've accepted that. I'm delegating that piece.
Right.
Now, I mean,
if
it was super expensive, that might be a different thing, because I realize a lot of people are going to see it as a luxury. But I weighed the cost. This is actually cheaper for me. We're saving on our grocery bill by doing this. Not to mention, I'm not taking my kids into the grocery store, so I'm not getting nagged to buy all the extra crap that we don't need.
Right. Well, and you're providing someone with a job.
Right.
We don't do delivery, we do pickup. So it's actually free for us to do it. And it is cheaper simply because,
well, I guess technically I pay a membership so I can have free delivery, but
right. But it's cheaper because I'm not going in the store and impulse buying things that I don't really need. I try to stick to a list regardless, but if I take one of my kids in, we're buying something that is not on the list. We're probably buying several things that are not on the list. So, and we live in the modern era where some conveniences are good. And that is convenience that I consider good because, like I said, it saves me time. Instead of it taking me 4 or 5 hours to go to the grocery store, it takes me an hour, because it takes me about a half an hour to drive there and a half hour to drive back. and they load everything in my car, which takes like 5 minutes. So,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't take any time at all. And if I have other errands that I need to run while I'm in town, then I can get those done at the same time. And, if
Yeah, I will do pickup if I'm already going to town for something, or if I'm trying to find something very specific and there's only this one store that has it. Like I've done pickup to Target a few times because I couldn't find the stuff anywhere else. And I know what happens when I walk into Target. So I needed to make it as simple as possible. But yeah, I will do that. I loathe walking into Walmart. Mainly
I
because
don't go to Walmart. I refuse.
there are a couple of things I will buy at Walmart. Only because they're the cheapest and they're the only places that I can find like the bulk size.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise I will go out of my way to not shop at Walmart. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it because I'm already like on my way home from co-op or, something like that. And I'm picking it up on the way home.
Right. If we drive to Fort Wayne and we go through Wabash, that's like the only store to go to other than Kroger, and Kroger is expensive. So
yeah,
but that's the only time I will go to Walmart, and I have to really be hurting to need something to go in there.
if you think Kroger's expensive, you would really hate to see Publix.
Yeah, I think Kroger, it's definitely, well, there's another grocery in Wabash. It's just like a little like mom and pop type place. And so I'll go in there and pick up some stuff, but it's just because I like to support that it's a little mom and pop shop. But
Right. See,
I don't want to spend
really
$5 for
any
a
of
bottle
those
of ketchup
anymore. Well, right.
So-
And then I actually haven't our ketchup has been really cheap that I've gotten from from Kroger, but most of the time I'm getting
not from this mom and pop shop. I went in there and bought ketchup because it was on my way home, and I was like, wow, I don't think I'll do that again. But their meat prices are good.
Well, that's good. Well, yeah, there is a like mom and pop shop meat market, I guess.
Yeah.
They're not a butcher shop. They're bringing it in, but anyway.
Right.
I will shop with them because they've probably got the best quality meat and their prices are comparable to the grocery store. So if I want a nice steak or something like that, or sometimes I'll do they'll do like these bulk family meat packages.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way I can kind of get a variety of things and it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean,
support your local farmer whenever you can.
Well, right. Yeah. Like I said, I prefer to get my produce from them anyway. Stop beating yourself up. Right. It is okay to let some stuff go and delegate stuff. It's like we've said before, doing everything yourself is not sustainable. Ideally, yes, we want to, if we're going to outsource it, if we're going to delegate it to someone else, we're going to do it within our community. But I mean, honestly, even these companies that are national brands are employing people in your community.
Right. Which is something to take into consideration.
Don't like Walmart, but
no.
Yeah.
But it is something to take into consideration when you're thinking about, like, I don't really like to support big corporate business, but, we all do it by default in some way, shape, or form. We all drive vehicles. We all have internet, or we wouldn't be listening to this podcast. We have computers and phones and all those things. And those are all big, large corporations. And that's just, the tip of the iceberg. And we all use toilet paper. Unless
most of us use toilet paper.
I can't do the family cloth thing. That's just so
no.
gross. I cloth diapered
like
my kids, by the way.
Right. All right. So yes. Simplify your routine, simplify your life. Figure out what you can take off. Really, it comes down to figuring out what your priorities are, what you're going to focus on, what you're going to dedicate your time to, and then figuring out how you can either eliminate or delegate everything else.
Right.
I think that's really what it all comes down to.
And when it comes to the busy season, you're going to be busy, and you just have to realize that, number one, you're not going to get everything done in one day. You're not supposed to. And don't let it overwhelm you and stress you out. You just, take a break, take a minute. If your garden has massive amount of weeds, just weed one little section. And if the rest of it's in weeds, then, well, the bugs will eat the weeds instead of your produce, hopefully. I mean,
Or the weeds will create a place for them to hide so they can easily get to your produce. But
well, yeah, but I mean, I'm
But
just saying you have to let
you
it
can
go and
like, right, do a little bit every day.
right.
You know, just go out and do a few. Now I really like my stirrup-hoe because I can knock out a lot of weeds and I can really get in close to the plants, but I'm not down there hand weeding everything. And it's really made it go a lot faster for me.
Right.
So, I mean, we could probably have a whole other episode just talking about ways that we can simplify our gardening and automate
Oh
so
yeah,
that
definitely.
things are less time consuming. The busy season's only a season.
Right.
It's only going to last for a little bit of time. I mean, really, like we have this huge push to get everything started and get everything into the garden. And then it's really about maintaining for the rest of the season. I mean,
Right.
yes, the growing season has its own set of issues and projects and, you know, things that we need to do. But again, it comes back to there's a lot of things that we can automate to make that easier for us.
Right.
So
and
just
you can
take it
also
a day at a time.
succession plant so that you're
Mhm.
not, you know, don't start the entire tray of seeds at the same time. If you're just starting one tray of peppers or whatever, you know, start a few and then start a few more the next week. And that way you don't have to plant them all at the same time.
Mhm.
So
I mean, even if you're working on preserving, like don't have your cucumbers and your tomatoes coming ripe at the same time. That way, this week you can focus on preserving your tomatoes, and this week you can focus on preserving your cucumbers.
But a trick for that is that you can actually, I mean, you have to have freezer space for it, of course, but you could actually just freeze your tomatoes. They can be, that's what we do. We keep all of our tomatoes. We core them and I peel them and then they go in the freezer. And then we go back in a big food safe bucket. And then we go back and we will do like big batches of tomatoes, sometimes even in the winter. So that we don't have that, you know, during the busy canning season. Cucumbers, you can't really do that with. So, you know,
right. The only good news is it's pretty
bucket.
easy to do dill pickles, but yeah.
Right. And you can leave those tomatoes, you can leave them whole if you want to. It's just easier for me if you at least core them before you throw them.
Yeah, if you've got the freezer space.
Right.
That's usually half the battle for me, either having the fridge or the freezer space.
Right.
And same thing with green beans and carrots and potatoes and anything else that you want to preserve.
Right. Trying to make sure they don't all get ready at the same time.
Yes.
Which if you're following your guidelines for your last frost date, honestly, they shouldn't.
Right.
Just look at the back of your seed packet, see what the date to maturity is and work from there, and realize that your date to maturity is from the time you put the plant outside. It is not from the time you start the seed inside.
Right.
A lot of people
and if it's that. Yeah, like it, and that may be when you first start seeing fruit. You can still have a harvesting season beyond that,
right?
Because it really becomes about how long can you extend that into the fall, you know, and continue harvesting. So
right.
If you haven't yet, go and check out our Patreon, Grounded in Simplicity. You can see all of our amazing bloopers. And also ad-free versions of our podcast. And please like and subscribe so that we can reach more moms who need help feeling overwhelmed.
Give us a review.
Give us a review. Well, actually, we haven't really had any reviews to read. So please leave us a review and we will read it on the air because we could all use a good laugh. All right. That's it for today. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Grounded in Simplicity podcast. If we were able to help you in any way, please share this episode with a friend and also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also join us over on Patreon at Grounded in Simplicity and help to support this podcast as well as become a patron and get a behind the scenes look at the creation of our podcast and even have some input on future episodes.